I froze when I saw it, a gift box sitting on the table, as if it had been waiting for me. Curiosity tugged at me, and I opened it without thinking. Inside, there it was. A used protection. My breath caught in my chest. I looked deeper into the box, and then it hit me, a disc with my name written on it and photos I didn't recognize. I felt the world shift under me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, had been hiding something far worse. As I stared at the photos, my mind raced. These weren't just random images, they were evidence. And then, just as I was trying to make sense of it all, I heard the door creak open. My wife, Lisa, walked in. She stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes immediately locking on the box. The air between us felt thick, heavy with the truth she was about to face. "Lisa," my voice barely escaped me, shaking with disbelief. "Explain this." She froze, her face shifting from surprise to a forced calm, trying to mask the panic that was creeping up on her. But it was too late. I wasn't going to let her talk her way out of this one. She could say whatever she wanted, but nothing was going to undo the cold reality that had just slammed into me. She wasn't the woman I thought she was. She wasn't my wife anymore. Lisa stood there, her eyes wide, her breath shallow. I could see the fear in her eyes, but also something else. A defensive shield she was trying to put up, though it was cracking under the weight of her guilt. She had been hiding this, and now the truth was hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. "What is this, Lisa?" I repeated, my voice steady, but there was an edge to it now. I wasn't the man she thought I was. I wasn't going to just sit here and let her lie her way out of it. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, her hands shaking as she reached for the box, trying to push it away from me. But it was too late. I had already seen enough. The images, the disc, the protection, every single piece of evidence screamed betrayal. And she was standing there, trying to play innocent. I wasn't buying it anymore. "You don't know what I'm talking about?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. "You're telling me this is all just a mistake? That this stuff, this proof, is some kind of coincidence?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence between us was deafening. I could feel my anger building, rising like a tidal wave, threatening to drown everything else. How could she do this to me? To us? "I wasn't cheating on you, okay?" she finally said, but it came out in a rush, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. It wasn't like that. I was just. "Don't even try," I cut her off, unable to listen to another one of her half-hearted excuses. "I know exactly what's going on, Lisa. You think I haven't noticed the late nights, the sudden trips? The way you've been acting distant for months?" I took a step closer to her, my eyes locked onto hers. "I gave you the benefit of the doubt, thinking it was just work or some phase you were going through. But this? This is different. This is you, lying to my face, playing me like a fool." She took a deep breath, and for a moment, I saw something behind her eyes, something that looked like guilt, maybe even regret. But then it disappeared as quickly as it had come. She straightened up, her shoulders stiffening, and her eyes hardened. "It's not what you think," she said again, her voice more confident now. She was trying to hold her ground, to twist the narrative, but I wasn't having it. "Then what is it, Lisa?" I demanded, my patience slipping away. "What exactly is this? Tell me. I'm listening." She looked at the box, at the photos, and then back at me. I didn't mean for it to happen," she admitted, her voice low. "It was just one thing. A mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated, my anger bubbling over. "A mistake?" How many times had I heard that word in my life? "No, Lisa. This isn't a mistake. This is you throwing everything away. This is you betraying me." She shook her head, her face scrunching up as though she were trying to convince herself more than me. "I was lonely. You weren't there for me like you used to be. I needed something more." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream at her, to throw everything in her face. How could she say something like that? How could she justify what she'd done? But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about me. It was about her. Her selfishness. Her need to feel desired by someone else. And now I was standing here, trying to piece together the shattered remnants of our relationship while she stood there, making excuses. "You needed something more?" I asked, my voice shaking now. "You think that gives you the right to betray me? To sleep with someone else?" She didn't say anything. She couldn't. The truth was too raw. She had nothing left to hide behind. "I don't even know who you are anymore, Lisa," I said quietly, the weight of those words sinking in. "I thought I knew you. I thought you were my partner. But this is something I can't undo. And neither can you." Her eyes softened for a moment, like she was trying to feel something, but then she blinked it away. "Please," she whispered. "Don't make this worse than it is." "Worse than it is?" I repeated, my voice rising again. "You're asking me not to make it worse? You've already made it worse than I ever thought possible, Lisa. You've ruined everything. And now you want me to feel sorry for you?" I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I fought them back. I wasn't going to cry for her. Not after everything she had done. Not after the way she had lied, and manipulated, and shattered everything we had built together. "I don't know what you want from me anymore," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I don't know if you expect me to forgive you or what. But all I know is that this is the end. The end of everything I thought we had." And with that, I turned away. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't hear her excuses, her pathetic justifications. There was no coming back from this. The silence in the room was suffocating. Every breath I took felt heavier than the last. I stood there, my back turned to her, unable to process the emotions coursing through me. Anger, betrayal, confusion, it was all mixing together in a violent storm, making it difficult to think clearly. I heard her move behind me, the shuffle of her feet on the hardwood floor. She was following me, trying to close the gap, but I wasn't ready to listen to her anymore. I needed space. I needed time to think. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when I knew it wasn't. When I had the proof right there in front of me. "Don't walk away from me," she snapped, her voice suddenly sharp and demanding. She had the nerve to get angry at me. The audacity to act like she was the victim in all of this. "I'm trying to explain myself here." "I don't need any more explanations, Lisa," I said, my voice calm but firm. It felt like I was in a different world, one where nothing made sense anymore. "You've explained yourself enough. Every time you came home late, every time you lied about where you were or who you were with, you explained yourself with your actions. Your excuses meant nothing. And now I see the truth." "You don't understand," she yelled, stepping forward, her hands waving in the air. "It wasn't like that. I just needed someone who cared about me, someone who didn't ignore me. You've been so distant. You stopped paying attention to me. It was a mistake, okay? A mistake? You slept with someone else, and it's a mistake." I turned to face her, my voice rising with every word. I could feel the fire inside of me growing. "You don't get to call this a mistake. You don't get to downplay it like that. You don't get to walk away from this just because it's too hard for you to face. This is your reality now. You wanted this? Well, here it is." Lisa was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling with every word she shouted. She looked desperate, but there was something in her eyes that made me feel nothing but disdain. I didn't want it to go this far, she said, her voice dropping. But you stopped seeing me, stopped hearing me. I needed someone who would see me. I saw you, I said, the bitterness in my voice cutting through the air like a blade. I saw you every day. I was there, I was supporting you. But you couldn't have cared less. All that mattered to you was finding someone who would make you feel good in the moment, regardless of the damage you were doing. You don't get to make excuses for your actions, Lisa. You did this. Not me. Not anyone else. You. For a moment, she looked like she might say something else, but then her face softened, and she took a step back. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible now. I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to laugh at her apology. It felt so empty, so insincere. The words didn't hold any weight, not after everything she had done. Sorry? I repeated, the word tasting sour on my tongue. Sorry doesn't fix this, Lisa. Sorry doesn't undo what's been done. It doesn't erase the fact that you were out there with someone else. It doesn't erase the lies. She stood there, silent now, her eyes fixed on the ground as if she were ashamed. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to fix what had been broken. It wasn't enough to make me feel anything but disgust. She could stand there and apologize all she wanted, but the damage had already been done. You have no idea what this feels like, do you? I asked, my voice cracking. You have no idea how it feels to give everything to someone, to trust them completely, only to find out they've been lying to you this whole time. I gave you everything, Lisa. And now? Now, I have nothing. Her eyes lifted to meet mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something real, something that looked like regret. But it was too late. It wasn't enough. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Then why did it? I asked, the question lingering in the air between us like a weight that neither of us could lift. Why did you let it happen? You could have stopped it. You could have come to me. But instead, you chose to cheat. You chose to betray me. And now, you expect me to just forgive you? You expect me to pretend like none of this happened? She didn't answer, and I could see the tears beginning to form in her eyes. She was crying now, but it didn't matter. The tears didn't change anything. She had broken something that couldn't be fixed with apologies or promises. Trust, once shattered, didn't come back. Don't cry now, Lisa, I said coldly. You made your choice. You made your bed, and now you have to lie in it. She looked at me, her face filled with frustration and desperation. Please, just give me a chance to explain. I didn't mean to hurt you. You had your chance, I said, my voice low and unwavering. But you didn't care enough to be honest with me, to fix what was broken. So now, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. With those final words, I turned and walked away. The anger was still bubbling inside of me, but there was something else, too. A hollow emptiness that I hadn't expected to feel. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built my life with, was gone. And in her place stood someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had shattered everything I thought I knew about us. As I left the room, I could hear her behind me, calling my name, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Not anymore. I left the room, the sound of Lisa's voice faintly trailing behind me, but I didn't turn back. The weight of everything, every lie, every betrayal, was starting to settle in. I could still hear the echoes of our argument in my head, the way her voice had cracked, the way she had tried to justify what she had done. But none of it made sense anymore. I needed time to think, to process. Everything felt like a blur. The gift box, the photos, the disc, it all felt surreal, like I was trapped in some nightmare I couldn't escape. I walked out into the kitchen, the coldness of the tiles beneath my feet grounding me, but it did nothing to stop the rush of emotions inside me. What was I supposed to do now? How could I move forward after this? I had given Lisa everything, and this is what I got in return. A shattered heart, an empty home, and a broken trust that I didn't know if I could ever rebuild. My phone buzzed in my pocket, dragging me back to reality. I pulled it out, seeing a text from my best friend, Greg. "You good, man? You've been quiet today." I stared at the message for a long time, wondering if I should tell him the truth. Could I really explain what had just happened? Could I tell him that the woman I had loved and trusted had just destroyed everything with one careless mistake? I leaned against the counter, my mind racing, and then the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from Lisa. I stared at the screen for a moment, the decision hanging in the air. Should I pick up? What could she possibly say that would change anything? I let it ring out, rejecting the call. I didn't want to talk to her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The silence that followed was almost louder than the arguments we'd just had. The stillness of the house felt deafening, as if every room was holding its breath, waiting for me to make a decision. And what decision could I make? What was I supposed to do when the woman I had chosen to spend my life with had chosen someone else instead? I grabbed the bottle of whiskey from the cabinet, the familiar weight of the glass in my hand almost comforting. I poured myself a drink, staring into the amber liquid. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. A moment of clarity? A sign that everything was going to be okay? But nothing came. The drink burned as it slid down my throat, but it didn't numb the pain. It didn't erase the reality that was now my life. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. My heart skipped a beat as I stood up, wondering who it could be. I wasn't in the mood for visitors. Especially not after everything that had just happened. But when I opened the door, I found myself face to face with Greg. "Man, you've been MIA for hours. What's going on?" he asked, his eyes scanning my face, looking for something, anything, he could latch onto. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't ready to unload everything on him, but I didn't have much choice. The anger and confusion were still swirling inside me, and I needed to get it out. "I found out today," I said, my voice flat, barely above a whisper. Greg's brow furrowed in confusion. "Found out what?" I didn't answer right away. My mind was still reeling, trying to put the pieces together. But as I looked at Greg, his face full of concern, his eyes searching mine for answers, I knew I couldn't keep it inside any longer. "She's been cheating on me," I finally said, the words tasting like acid in my mouth. "With someone else. 4 months." Greg's eyes widened, his face paling in disbelief. "What? No way, man, are you serious?" I nodded, my heart sinking deeper. "Yeah. She lied to me for months. All those late nights, the strange behavior, it was all because of him. I found the proof today, right there in front of me. I didn't need to explain the details. Greg could see the anger and hurt in my eyes. He didn't need to know the full story for him to understand the pain I was feeling. He could see it written all over me. "So, what are you going to do now?" Greg asked, his voice soft, but full of concern. I took a long gulp from my drink, feeling the burn of it again as it slid down my throat. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm still trying to figure it out. But right now, I don't even want to look at her. I don't know if I can ever trust her again." Greg nodded sympathetically. He had always known how much I loved Lisa. He had been there for me through everything, the good, the bad, and now this. But this was different. This wasn't something that could be fixed with a simple apology or a couple of heartfelt words. This was a betrayal at its core, and there was no coming back from it. "I get it, man," Greg said, clapping me on the shoulder. "But you can't keep running from this. You have to figure out what you're going to do, or it's going to eat you up from the inside. I don't even know where to start, I replied, my voice cracking slightly. I can't even look at her right now. I don't know if I'll ever be able to again. Well, maybe that's the answer, then, Greg said gently. Maybe you don't have to fix it. Maybe it's already broken. His words hit me harder than I expected. For the first time since the discovery, I felt like someone was telling me it was okay to let go. That maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to try and fix everything. Maybe this was the moment where I had to accept that it was over. As I sat there, talking with Greg, the weight of everything finally began to settle in. This was it. This was the moment that would define the rest of my life. The life I had known was gone. But what would I do with the life that was left? The days after that moment with Greg blurred together. The weight of what had happened hung over me like a dark cloud, and it didn't matter how hard I tried to shake it off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of that gift box, the used protection, the disc, the photos. It was burned into my mind, impossible to forget. And Lisa? She hadn't tried to contact me since the night of the confrontation. It was as though she had vanished, giving me the space I needed to breathe, or maybe just leaving me to stew in the wreckage she had caused. But in that silence, I began to feel something I hadn't expected: numbness. The anger, the hurt, it was still there, but it was no longer consuming me. Instead, I found myself paralyzed, unable to take any real action. I couldn't bring myself to talk to Lisa again. I couldn't make sense of anything, and the thought of making any decision, whether to stay, leave, or simply move on, felt like an impossible task. One afternoon, as I sat in the living room, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I stared at it for a long moment, reluctant to pick it up. But when I saw that it was a text from Lisa, something inside me broke. I didn't know why I had been avoiding her so much. Maybe I thought if I ignored her long enough, the problem would fix itself. But it hadn't. It wasn't going to. And if I was going to move forward, I needed to face her. I took a deep breath and opened the message. I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please talk to me. I can't fix this, but I want to try. I want to make it right. I read it several times, the words seeming to twist in my mind. She was sorry. She wanted to make it right. But was it enough? Was it possible to make anything right after all of this? The reality hit me again: she had cheated on me. She had lied to me. She had betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way possible. And now she wanted to fix it? I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I set the phone down and got up from the couch. I needed a drink. I needed something to clear my head. I wasn't ready to face her again. I wasn't ready to even think about what she was asking. But the fact that she was asking, begging, made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: uncertainty. The days dragged on, and I spent most of them alone, alternating between drinking, pacing, and staring blankly at the TV. It was like my mind was running in circles, never getting anywhere. And then, one evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, I heard a knock at the door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Lisa. She stood there, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She looked vulnerable, almost like a stranger, and yet, there was something in her posture that suggested she had come to terms with the mess she had created. She wasn't the woman I had once known, she couldn't be. The woman I had loved and trusted had shattered everything we had. And now, standing in front of me, she was asking for forgiveness. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her, my emotions battling for control. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to walk away and never look back. But another part of me, maybe the part that still loved her, maybe the part that was desperate for answers, wanted to hear what she had to say. I stepped aside, letting her in. She entered hesitantly, looking around the room like she didn't know what to expect. I closed the door behind her, and we stood in silence for a moment. The weight of everything between us was almost unbearable. I had no idea what to say to her, and I could tell that she was struggling to find the right words as well. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said again. "I was selfish. I thought I was doing what was best for me, but I wasn't thinking about how it would hurt you. I didn't want to lose you. I still don't. I want to fix this, but I don't know how." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout at her, to tell her that she couldn't just waltz back into my life and expect everything to go back to normal. But I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I just stood there, listening to her words, my heart torn between the love I still felt for her and the pain she had caused. "I don't know if you can fix this," I said quietly, the words coming out more pain than I had intended. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you've done. You broke my trust. You broke us." Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out, taking a step toward me. "Please," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to give me a chance. A chance to show you that I can change. That I can be the wife you deserve." I shook my head, my mind racing. A chance? How could I possibly give her a chance after everything? She had already shown me who she really was, and I couldn't unsee that. But then I thought about everything we had been through together, the good times, the moments of happiness, the dreams we had shared. Could I really throw all of that away? Could I really walk away from her, from us, without ever looking back? I didn't know. I couldn't decide. And maybe that was the problem. I had to decide what I wanted, what I deserved. I had to decide whether to keep fighting for something that might never be the same again, or whether to walk away and start over. And for the first time in weeks, I realized that I couldn't do this alone. I had to figure out what I wanted. What was best for me. The silence between us was deafening. Lisa stood just a few feet away, waiting, her eyes filled with hope and regret. She was waiting for me to make the call, to give her some sort of answer, anything that would give her a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for us. But in that moment, I felt more uncertain than I had ever felt in my life. I didn't know if I was strong enough to forgive her, or if I even wanted to. The thought of letting her back in after everything that had happened seemed impossible, but at the same time, the love I had for her, the woman I had married, was still there, buried deep under the layers of betrayal. And I hated myself for it. I hated myself for still wanting her, for still caring about her, even after she had done this to me. She took a step closer, breaking my thoughts. Her eyes never left mine as she spoke again, her voice softer this time, almost pleading. "I know I messed up. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that it wasn't about you. It wasn't because I didn't love you. I was just lost. And I made a terrible choice." "Lost?" I repeated, my voice flat. "You think that's an excuse? You think being lost justifies lying to me, cheating on me, and breaking everything we built?" She flinched at my words, but didn't back away. "No. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to understand that I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to fill a void. I didn't know how to communicate with you, and I thought." She trailed off, clearly struggling to find the right words. I was struggling to listen. All I could hear were the lies that had been coming out of her mouth for months, for maybe even years. Everything she was saying now felt like a rehearsed apology, a well-constructed story designed to make me feel pity for her. But I didn't want pity. I didn't want excuses. I wanted the truth, and I wasn't sure I had gotten that yet. "You didn't know how to communicate?" I asked, my tone mocking. You couldn't talk to me about what you were feeling? What was missing? Instead, you just went behind my back and did whatever you wanted, without a care for how it would destroy me. How it would destroy us. She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. I don't want to hear any more excuses, Lisa. I've heard enough. I've heard enough to last a lifetime. She looked like she might cry again, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to be swayed by her tears. I had let that happen before, and look where it had gotten me. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now, she said, her voice low, almost fragile. I'm just asking for a chance. Not to fix everything, but to show you that I can change. I've realized how much I've messed up, and I want to make things right. I can't do that if you won't even give me a chance to try. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. There was a part of me, just a small part, that still wanted to believe her. That still wanted to believe in the woman I had married, in the life we had built. But the reality of what had happened weighed too heavily on me. The betrayal was too much, and no amount of tears or promises could undo it. You don't get it, do you? I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't just forget what you did. I can't pretend like everything's fine because you're standing here, apologizing. It's not that simple. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. I don't even know if I want to. She took another step toward me, her face pleading. Please. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to prove that I can be the woman you deserve. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now, but I need you to believe that I can change. I need you to believe that I'm not the same person I was before. I looked into her eyes, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. The woman who had been my partner, my best friend. The woman who had once been the center of my world. But then the image of the box, the used protection, and the photographs rushed back into my mind, and I felt the weight of the betrayal all over again. I turned away, unable to face her any longer. I walked across the room, my mind spinning. My heart was torn in two, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't make sense of it. She had shattered everything I thought I knew about her. She had shattered everything I thought I knew about us. And now, she was asking for another chance. But I didn't know if I could give her that chance. I couldn't even be sure I wanted to. I can't do this right now, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I need time. Time to think. Time to figure out what I want. Because right now, I don't know. Lisa's face fell, and I saw the pain in her eyes. But there was nothing I could do to take it away. She had made her choices, and now I had to make mine. I walked toward the door, my hand resting on the handle. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. But right now? I just need some space. She didn't argue. She didn't try to stop me. She simply nodded, her eyes filled with regret. I could hear her soft sobs as I opened the door, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I stepped out into the cool night air, the door closing softly behind me. The weight of everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayal, the broken trust, hung heavily on my shoulders. But as I stood there in the quiet, I realized something. I had to make a choice. I had to decide what I wanted from my life. From my future. And I couldn't do that with Lisa's words, her tears, and her apologies clouding my judgment. The days after Lisa left were a blur of uncertainty. Each morning felt like a new battle, each hour spent trying to process the mess she had made of my life. The silence in the house was deafening. I couldn't escape it. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her, reminders of what had been. The coffee cup she always left on the kitchen counter, the perfume she wore that still lingered in the air, the photographs of us on the wall. I couldn't escape the memories. They haunted me, even in my sleep. I spent most of my time alone, pacing the rooms, wrestling with myself. Every part of me wanted to pick up the phone, to call her and make things right. Maybe we could work through this, rebuild what we had. But then, just as quickly, the memory of that gift box, of the betrayal, would slam into me, and the anger would return. How could I forgive her? How could I trust her again after everything she had done? The lies, the deceit, the selfishness, it was too much to process. I didn't know where to start. I had thought, in the quiet of the first night alone, that maybe I could be strong enough to move on. To take control of my life again. But with each passing day, the weight of the situation grew heavier. I found myself on the couch one night, scrolling through old photos on my phone, memories of better times, and I hated myself for missing her. I hated myself for still longing for her presence, for the way she used to make me feel. The woman I had known, the woman I had loved, seemed so far out of reach now. But deep down, I wondered if that woman was still in there somewhere, beneath all the lies. Or if, perhaps, she had been gone all along. I knew I had to make a decision, but that decision felt like an impossible mountain to climb. I wasn't sure I was ready to face the reality of what our relationship had become. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe I wasn't just hurt by what she had done, I was afraid. Afraid that I had invested so much of myself into this marriage that I would be lost without it. Afraid that, without her, I would never be the same. I had to admit, deep down, that I was terrified of change. I tried to keep busy. I went to the gym, met up with friends, did everything I could to distract myself from the storm raging inside me. But no matter how much I tried to ignore it, the truth was always there, lurking beneath the surface. Lisa had betrayed me. She had crossed a line that I wasn't sure could be undone. She had hurt me in a way that was impossible to ignore. And yet, there I was, still thinking about her, still wondering if it was possible to fix things. One evening, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see her. I had to know what she wanted, what she expected from me, because I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I couldn't keep going around in circles, wondering if there was still hope for us or if I was just clinging to something that was already broken beyond repair. I grabbed my keys and left the house, making my way to her apartment. The drive there was a blur. My mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. What would I say? How would I confront her? Could I even trust myself to have a rational conversation? My hands gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white from the tension. And just as I pulled up outside her apartment, I hesitated. The car idled in front of the building, and I sat there, staring at the entrance. I thought about all the hurt, all the frustration that had built up in me over the past few days, and I wondered if it was worth it. Was it worth going back to that place? Was it worth risking everything again? I couldn't stay in the car forever, though. I had made up my mind. I stepped out and walked to the door of her building, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I reached the door, I knocked, and within seconds, I heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching from the other side. My heart raced as the door creaked open, and there she was, Lisa, standing before me, looking as if she hadn't expected me to show up. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and for a brief moment, there was nothing but silence between us. The weight of everything we had been through, hung in the air like a thick fog. Neither of us knew what to say. I could see the sadness in her eyes, but I also saw something else, something desperate. She wanted me to understand. She wanted me to see that she had changed. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. I nodded, stepping inside. She didn't waste any time. She led me to the couch, and we sat down, facing each other. "I've been thinking about everything," she began, her voice shaky. "And I know I've hurt you in ways that I can never take back. I wish I could change what I did, but I can't. I can only tell you that I'm sorry, from the bottom of my heart. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to destroy everything we had." I looked at her, my eyes searching hers for something, anything, that could tell me whether she was truly sorry, or if she was just trying to manipulate me. The vulnerability in her voice was real, but was it enough? Could I believe her words after everything that had happened? "I don't know if I can trust you again, Lisa," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I can ever believe you the way I did before." "I understand," she said quietly, looking down at her hands. "I know I've lost your trust, and I know it's going to take time. But I'm asking for a chance. Not for us to go back to the way things were, but for us to move forward. Together. To rebuild what we lost." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. Was it possible? Could we really rebuild something that had been so broken? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. "I don't know if I can," I said, shaking my head. "I don't know if I can ever feel the same way about you again. But I can't keep living like this. I need to figure out what I want, and I need to do it on my own." Lisa nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand. I'll give you the time you need. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Her words were sincere, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be as easy as she thought. Rebuilding trust wasn't something that happened overnight. And I had a long road ahead of me, one that I wasn't sure I was ready to walk. The days following my visit to Lisa's apartment felt like I was living in a fog. Everything was blurred, and I couldn't focus. It was as if the ground beneath me had shifted, and I had no idea which way to move. Lisa had given me space, she had respected my request for time, but the silence was suffocating. It made the weight of the betrayal feel even heavier. Every time I woke up, I was reminded of the mess that had taken over my life. I couldn't escape it. At work, I couldn't concentrate. My mind kept drifting to Lisa's face, the desperation in her eyes, the sound of her voice when she asked for a second chance. I kept thinking about the woman I had married, about the life we had built together. There had been good times, real moments of happiness. But they now felt like distant memories, tainted by the knowledge of what she had done. I had been living in a constant state of internal conflict. My mind was torn between two opposing forces, one that wanted to believe in her, in us, and another that reminded me of the painful truth. She had betrayed me. She had lied. She had made a choice, and now, I had to decide whether I was strong enough to forgive her, to move past the pain. One evening, I found myself back at the same place, the couch, with a glass of whiskey in hand. It had become my refuge, my way of coping with everything I was feeling. The whiskey didn't numb the pain, but it gave me the illusion of relief. I stared at the glass in my hand, watching the amber liquid swirl around. It seemed like such a simple thing, a drink, yet it held so much more. It was a symbol of my indecision, of the way I had been drowning in my own emotions. I picked up my phone. I had been ignoring Lisa's calls and texts for days, but this time, I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. It was time to face her. Time to face what had become of us. I unlocked my phone and dialed her number. It rang a few times before she picked up. Her voice sounded hesitant, like she wasn't sure if I was calling to yell at her, to tell her it was over. But I wasn't sure either. "Hello?" she answered softly. "Lisa," I said, my voice tight. "We need to talk." "I know," she replied quickly, her tone filled with a mix of hope and fear. "I've been waiting for you to reach out. I want to hear what you have to say." I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot, Lisa. About everything. About what you said, about what I want. And I don't know if I can do this." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, steady but filled with anticipation. She was waiting for me to say something more, something that would give her hope, something that would reassure her. But I couldn't do that. Not yet. I'm not sure I can forgive you, I continued, my words coming out slower now, as I tried to figure out how to say the next part. I'm not sure I can ever feel the same way about you again. The trust is gone, Lisa. And I don't know if I can rebuild it. I understand, she said quietly, her voice cracking slightly. I know I've lost that. I know I've broken something that can't be fixed easily. But I want to try. I want to show you that I can be the person you deserve. I'll do anything to prove it to you. I felt the lump in my throat as her words echoed in my mind. Could I really let her back into my life? Could I rebuild what had been destroyed? Part of me wanted to believe in her, in the possibility that we could fix this. But the other part of me, the part that had been hurt so deeply, was scared. Scared of making the wrong choice. Scared of giving her a second chance, only to be hurt again. Lisa, I said, trying to steady my voice, I can't promise you anything right now. I need time. I need to figure out what I want, what's best for me. I can't keep living like this. I need clarity. I need to know what's worth fighting for, and what's not. I heard her take a deep breath. I understand. I'll wait. I'll give you whatever time you need. I won't pressure you. I just want a chance to show you that I can change. It was like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, but at the same time, it felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the unknown. There was no clear answer, no easy way forward. I could either keep fighting for what we had, or I could let it all go and walk away. As the days passed, I found myself stuck in the same loop of indecision. I tried to focus on the present, on what I needed to do for myself. But every time I thought I had figured things out, a memory of Lisa would surface, and it would knock me off course. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't ignore what she had done, what it had done to me. But I also couldn't ignore the love I still felt for her. I started seeing a therapist, hoping to gain some perspective. Talking to someone outside of the situation helped, but it didn't give me the answers I was looking for. The truth was, there was no right answer. No magic fix. It was a decision I had to make on my own. One evening, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a piece of paper. I had written down a list of everything that had gone wrong in our relationship and everything that could go right if I chose to forgive her. The paper seemed so simple, but it felt like a weighty decision. I was trying to decide whether it was worth it. Whether the pain was worth the possibility of rebuilding something new. I spent hours that night going over everything in my mind. The lies, the pain, the history we shared. But in the end, I knew that no matter what decision I made, I couldn't undo what had happened. I couldn't erase the hurt. I could only move forward. And I had to choose whether I wanted to move forward with her, or without her.